Welcome back to another episode of the Dynasty Dingers podcast. We got a late one for you tonight. It is February 20th. We are recording. I guess it's February 20th for me, and Doc, for you, it's February 21st. What's up, dude?
It's February 21st. Recording this from a cigar bar. Apologies for my haircut. I am not Hitler's top guy in Nazi Germany. We are very anti controversy here at Scout the Stat Line. We were actually kind of sad though. Look at this. How is this not the most like ultra 80s hockey shirt? This was my wife's Mima's shirt. A dead woman owned this shirt. She's now dead, no longer alive. And so I guess I'm cross-dressing in a weird way, but it's probably unisex. This is a crazy start to a podcast, folks. If you're not ready to rumble, I don't know if you're ever going to be ready to rumble. This is after I don't know whenever you're going to be seeing this or hearing this, but I will tell you, devastated losing to Canada in this. It was the big America Canada hockey game. Winner was supposed to take Canada. Now Canada gets to beat Canada. It's so crazy.
Could you imagine if the game was actually for territory control? That would be insane.
This is the hottest start to any podcast, folks. Yeah, and I'm not even going to explain it. I'm in a cigar bar by myself, and no one's going to come in here. And I have a gun.
Just in case.
We're going to get fired for this is the craziest start to any podcast. I love it.
I'm going to hold my statement back, but you know.
If you're only listening, folks, you got to put on the YouTube just for the opening.
Yes. You know, those of you that don't know, Doc, formerly a Canadian, now a very proud American citizen. So when you had texted me that we were going to wait to record until the game was over, I was kind of like, well, I don't know, like where your allegiance would be in this game. I was like, you know, just so you know, I'm rooting for America. And you fired back like, well, yeah, I am too. And I was like, hell yes.
Well, here's the deal. So I'm allowed to make those Canadian jokes. That's my original people. That's my word. And they Canuck is my word. And so yeah, I took a pledge when I became an American citizen, and I took it serious. I do, you know, hey, I got respect for the place that raised me, where I was born. I don't hate it. Don't hate Canada or anything like that. But I do love America, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm grateful. I take it seriously.
I love that. I have a few friends that are still Canadian citizens, but are in the U.S. And I hear the same like sentiment from them, right? Like nothing against Canada, but they chose to be here in the States for a reason.
Is this a baseball podcast?
No, we're actually going to dive into the geopolitical nature that is Canada, Mexico, the United States, and we're going to rename the Gulf of tonight. That's going to be officially our trademark. Breaking into the show today, everyone, we are dropping the top 10, 1 through 10, Scout the Stat Line, shortstops of 2024. We have shortstop, outfield, and pitcher left. We will get those to you by hopefully first pitch either in Japan or first pitch in America. We will get that list done. Doc, I just wanted to ask you really quick before we bounce into this, because we got some buzzier names today. So I don't think we're gonna go really deep on these guys, because I mean Sebastian Walcott is 10. Like, what more do we need to tell people about Sebastian Walcott than he's great? What did you think of ESPN and Major League Baseball parting ways today?
Just frustrating, in a way, but also I'm a bit of an optimist. The downside is obviously that mainstream sports just aren't. ESPN's just not understanding that baseball is not going anywhere. It's incredibly popular. The niche is strong. It is a niche. Is it going to be the most popular sport in the whole world? I mean, I don't know. It seems like the World Baseball Classic was great, but the niche isn't going anywhere. It's kind of foolish to me, especially when you're seeing the success of the niche of hockey. You know, it's growing right now. To give up on that is one thing. I don't know all the behind the scenes dealings, but frankly, I do see opportunities. Again, look at us. Look at the internet. There's so much technology, so many innovations each and every day that as much as I like the tradition of having something like Baseball Tonight and all this, you know, the Sports Illustrated, you know, RIP, you know, that used to be the staple. A lot of the things we grew up with, maybe, you know, being born in the 90s, anyone older, you know, it's sad to see some of these institutions go, but I guess all we can do, I can't bring it back. All we can do is try to rebuild and build better in their place. And now you're at Dynasty Dingers. Who needs ESPN when you got Dynasty Dingers?
Yeah, you got us. And I think that kind of fits into my notion and my thought as well. ESPN probably for the last 10, 15 years has chosen to kind of strip away its baseball marketing, its baseball content, the product that they're actually providing to the viewers. Is it what it once was? And I think they were doing baseball a disservice. I would almost go as far to say that they were hurting the growth of baseball by choosing to put baseball as the third sport to the NBA and football. You saw that even on the Sports Center nightly rundowns. Baseball, when we grew up, was almost half the show in summer. And now in summer, you're lucky if you get 10 minutes. You're not breaking down every game for 2-minute clips. It's different. So I'm ecstatic. I also don't like ESPN. I have an issue with the way they do business. So hopefully revenue can continue to, move forward in a different channel. But I did want your opinion on that because it is pretty big news. All right, guys. First one, we're going to be breaking into the shortstops. As I had mentioned, we will start with number one, Leo Dallas Vries for the good old Padres, which are also offering individual packages. Talk about TV deals. If you're in the San Diego area or Las Vegas, you can buy the Padres season viewing rights. Kind of cool this year. Leo Dallas Vries, overall, he's got the stat line ranked 7th, so he's given a very respectable rank. His peak projections, WRC plus at 127.8, batting average at 261, on base percentage of 344, slug at 490, 28 home runs, 16 stolen bases. Doc, DeVries is one of the youngsters we're going to be talking about today. What are your overall thoughts about his prospect profile?
He's just one of those guys where we got to remember how old he is because, this is something where I gave LDV that in my rankings, and I'm going to be doing some new rankings
Oh, I
ahead.
like that. You gotta hold on to that one.
What?
The LDV. I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh, yeah, LDV.
It
I
sounds like a
say,
wrestler.
yeah, like Rob Van Dam.
Mm-hmm.
That guy who did the 5-star frog splash. Shout out to
Mm.
anyone who remembers the
Mm.
good era of wrestling. Um, I love how quiet it is in here. I can just talk as if yell all the time. Yeah. LDV. The reason I say that is because I don't know how to say DeVries or DeVries, and I'm not confident either way. So LDV is cooler and it's safer. So his profile, though, it's a weird one if you're just looking at it as a random, just any player at low A. He's got that nice high OBP, questionable batting average. These are just things we don't need to care about too much at this point. He's a 17-year-old. He's still he's an 18-year-old now, but coming over first taste of American pro ball, and he goes out and 75 games, he gives us 11 home runs, 13 stolen bases, just flashing that power and speed as a young man. I've heard that he's not quite 6 feet tall, that might be an exaggeration. I don't know if I care at all. It's not like he's 5'7". It's not anything too dramatic, but these are just some things maybe you haven't heard. The walk rate is really nice and encouraging. The K rate is not out of control. It's all just like an all-around exciting, fun little profile for the guy who was, top DSL bat last year, right? And so I think he's worth hyping up, and he's got such a long road in front of him. But I think this is someone who's got a pretty safe floor just based on what he's showing us at such a young age.
I think if I remember correctly, I'm trying to find his poll. He was number one scouting J15 guy signed for I think it was 5 million, but I'm pretty sure they just literally threw him at Double A. I don't even think they gave him DSL or complex. Kind of like that Ethan Salas approach, and that's okay. I found it. 75 games at Class A, no complex, which is crazy, right? That the fact that they're doing that's like the Brewers taking Jesus Mate and being like, "Hey, guess what, dude? Like, welcome to Biloxi or whatever A ball affiliate might be." It was interesting comments today, and this is kind of in vein with the best shape of my life. But in an interview, Bogarts today said that he thinks DeVries is the real deal, and they have their lockers right next to us in camp. And I, secondly to that, they have given him an invitation to camp, much like Walcott has with Texas. And it's like this kid's a kid still, like it's going to benefit his progression to be right next to Xander Bogarts and to build that relationship. But again, very young. And I think when you talk about the model spitting a guy out that is this young, Like, that's incredible, right? And like we have more guys on this list that we know have more pedigree. What do you think for this kid? Right, going to be at age 18 season this year. Are you thinking he breaks the big leagues by 20, or do you think kind of let's wait and see?
I mean, he's frankly where I have him ranked. I think he's close to my number 30 rank. If not, he might be actually in the top 30 already. I believe he is. I don't like to look at things, folks. I know I can just go to my own Twitter page, X page, and look at that, but that's not as fun. That's just guessing what my own ranks are. I know you love that. And then Walcott, I had him. I was being so much more cautious with Walcott. I just really, it's like it's so unfair what the standard I'm holding him to, even though Walcott's got those K problems. It's like, dude, he's at AA at the same age. I think it just feels like he's been around longer or something. So I guess I'm taking your question about LDV and turning it into a Walcott thing, but it's just that he's going to be a number 10. He's number 10 on the Scout the Stat Line projections, which is, don't worry too much about it. It's a guy. These projections are great guidelines for who you don't want to
Identifying.
miss out who you don't want to miss out on, but then also these guys you never heard of. So when the hype train on Walcott and LDV, don't get too caught up in their exact placements. But yeah, the future for him, I would love it if the Padres would calm down and just let him progress naturally instead of throwing him up to the major leagues at 19 from low A. They do some weird stuff sometimes. Sometimes it works out. They're just a weird franchise. It's not like they're the Angels where they're irresponsible necessarily, but with Salas, it looked like it was
That
irresponsible.
that was a
With
mistake,
Jack,
right?
I think that was probably a mistake. And then Jackson Merrill looks like it wasn't a mistake.
Yeah, because yeah, exactly. So 1 for 2.
Yeah,
But going back, Abrams, probably a mistake, right? Like, a little early to push Abrams when they brought him up. He wasn't even physically developed yet. Okay, so to put a little clarity on the Walcott Vries, Walcott is 2 full professional seasons. So Walcott is going to be entering his 3rd professional season. He'll turn 19 March 14th, whereas Leo DeVries is 18, will not turn 19 until October. So they're a year apart, and I think that's a big talking
not
point
a full
because
year. Not a full year.
not a full year, but like when you look at age, like the season of age, right? Like Walcott
It's
is
just
entering.
interesting. They're both technically 18 right now, and I'm sitting here, giving Walcott a hard time. I think I have him like closer to 70 overall, which that needs to change, and that will change.
Oh, that's interesting. That is
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah, but again, like if you look at the numbers, Walcott had a nice year last year, and we'll get to him, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But I guess the important thing is like these two kids, at least in my opinion, have the chance to be superstars. They may not, right? Maybe swing and miss, maybe size, because DeVries is anywhere from 5'9" to 6'1", depending on who you talk to. Like it's all over the board. All right, moving on. That was a good talk about Leo DeVries. Again, coming in as the number 7th overall player on Scott the Stat Line, number 1 shortstop. Moving on to one of your favorites from last year, FYPD. That's Colt Emerson at number 2. Colt Emerson is the 10th overall ranked STS player in the minor leagues. A projected WRC plus of 125.9, a BA of 273, on base percentage of 364, 448 slug, 18 home runs, 16 stolen bases, a solid 11% walk rate, 18% K rate. Doc, injury plagued 2024 for Cole Emerson. Hell of a fall league performance, though.
Yeah, everyone's kind of got this prospect fatigue about Colt Emerson. He's 19, so that seems weird. And he suffered injuries, so that seems weird. It's not. I don't. Some people are talking like maybe this is Cole Young. Maybe he's just not going to bring that power the way we thought he would, and it doesn't make sense to me because the EVs are there. He had an injury, and they kind of took a while to ramp back up. The EVs are there. The contact is through the roof. He's going to steal bases. I think this is a guy who's going to just deliver. Like, he's got such a long road ahead of. I mean, not such a long road. He should get to AA this year. But he needs to stay healthy. Number one thing with Colt Emerson is staying healthy right now because I do think he has that power, and I don't even care if he flashes it or it takes a while to flash it. We do need to see something here. We need to see 10 plus home runs this year, which would be a substantial raise from what he did last year. But stealing bases and giving us that, I believe he's going to get up to 20 home run power, maybe more. He's got a bigger frame than Cole Young. He's like 6'1", 200 something. He's still maturing. Colt Emerson is projectability there, and so I just think that we're giving up on him. I wouldn't say no one's really giving up on him, but I think people are cooling off on him
Yeah.
dramatically. And so, hey, if he has if he has a year where he's given us, you get another 5 home run kind of year, turning 20 years old. Yeah, okay, I guess maybe there's some Cole Young problem here developing, but that seems weird again to me, just because we're seeing him mash the ball and hit it and just making such hard contact. It doesn't seem likely.
Well, and I think people forget that power isn't just represented in home runs, right? Like Cole Young, or excuse me, Cole Emerson, 13 games for Peoria in the fall league. Again, last year was age 18 into 19 season. Like he'll be playing age 20-ish season this year. Like that's great for where
Mhm.
he's at. It really is good. But what he did for Peoria in 13 games was 9 doubles. He hit 370 with a 436 on base percentage, 8 stolen bases, 0 caught stealing. We know that the Arizona Fall League is known for getting guys caught on the bases, but that's still a really, really great profile, even if he is only a 10 to 15 homer guy. If he's putting up 35, 40 doubles a season, right? Maybe 5 to 8 triples in Seattle is a bigger ballpark. Like that's still a very, very valuable player because that will lead to more runs. And if you're hitting a double, anybody on base should be able to get home, and thus they're Marcelo Ozuna. Um, and I buy into what you were saying. I think the power can still come, but he's a young kid, and where his stock was to where it is kind of falling. Like it's kind of on that cliff, right? That Cole Young cliff, and it's like that. It shouldn't even be close to the edge, in my
Mm.
opinion. All right, moving on. Number 3, we have a Ross Jensen favorite here. Franklin Arias for the Boston Red Sox. Another guy that had some time at the complex in 2024. 2023, spent some time in the DSL. Really popped this season. Arias is the number 11th overall scout to stat line minor league player. His peak projection, 123.9 WRC plus, 274 BA, a 347 on base percentage, a 467 slug, 22 home runs, 18 stolen bases. And Doc, we saw a fantastic flash once he hit A ball this year. In 36 games, he batted 331, had 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases. So power and speed didn't show as much, but the average was definitely there. We have a power speed combo at lower levels here.
I mean, actually, his big splash was at the rookie ball level.
Mhm.
That's when he had the 355 average, 471
Oh,
OBP.
thank you. I got those backwards. Thank you.
Yeah, that was when it got weird, right? And so he had the 6 home runs, 30 stolen bases, rookie ball. Then he went to A ball, he didn't implode. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not freaking out, but 257, 331. It's like, okay, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. The bigger concern for me, maybe, is too small of a sample size. Is going from 30 stolen bases, 4 caught stealing, to 5 stolen bases, 2 caught stealing. Bad ratio. I don't like. It's like, again, very small sample size, but if you're not stealing bases efficiently, you won't get the green light at the major league level, which is far away at the moment for Franklin Arias. Power, he still hit 3 home runs. Before if Cole Emerson hit 3 home runs in 36 games, we'd be fired up. So let's try to be even here, be even-handed. So Franklin Arias, there's reason to be excited. I think the hype train. I think people. It's interesting. Yolan Cespedes was a guy who was uh, on the same team and just in terms of the same organization. He was crushing it too, and then he got hurt. And everyone kind of forgot about him. Franklin Arias, people have not forgotten about, and so the hype has kind of just maintained as if he didn't experience some difficulties at low A. Um, you know, I guess I'm excited. I'm interested, but I'm not as excited as a lot of people are. They're acting like he's a can't miss prospect. I'd just say I'm not going to get him probably because someone else loves him more. But if you picked him up and you have him on your team already, I mean, yeah, if someone's offering you blue chip kind of return, like a LDV kind of return, then yeah, deal him. But other than that, I'd say hold on tight.
It's interesting. Again, kind of back to age to level and where these guys are post international signing. Arias is more comparable to a Walcott, right? They've both had 2 years of professional experience, whether at DSL or stateside. And Walcott, is really starting to flash some of those big numbers above the complex. And we haven't seen that from Arias. Even LDV, right? Like he at least showed some of those skills at A ball a year younger than Arias. And that's probably what sets Arias back because we saw him in our 30 man, I want to say taken second round back half. So that 50 to 60 pick range, which I still think is aggressive
Mhm.
choice. But we also saw him, I think, in one league, then traded for a pretty hefty package, which is a risky deal because, again, like, yeah, he beat up the complex league, but A ball kind of told a different story.
I got an interesting stat here. So it looks like even though his numbers were a lot sexier on the surface, the complex level, his contact in complex was 73%,
Mm,
and then in low A went up to 80.
okay.
So actually, this is something where I'm kind of going back a little bit. Like, okay, yeah, we'll see what happens here. Again, he's got this weird 5'11", 170. Like, what is that? These kids, it's just so weird, man. I am biased with DSL against DSL because I'm just
Did
like, I don't know
you,
who's what and what's going on and how old everyone is.
before we move on to four, did you see Christian Campbell's batting practice today at all?
No, it's been a crazy day.
The hitch is gone. It's different. I want to say a completely different swing, but it is an incredibly fluid swing, and it's hard because it's batting practice, so, like, you're not facing upper end velocity. But the concerns that I had with his swing watching him completely eliminated.
Oh, here's a
I'm
fun
like,
question.
"What do you got?"
Who's got a better chance of making the Boston Red Sox opening day roster? Sorry, who's got a better chance of being on
Mm.
the Boston Red Sox opening day roster? Christian Campbell or Tristan Cassis?
Oh, okay. That wasn't where I thought you were going. I thought Anthony was gonna come out of your mouth. Um, Christian Campbell.
It's kind of crazy, right? I'm gonna friggin' tweet
Mhm.
that. We'll X post that one. Doesn't sound as nice.
I hate like, I don't mind the Rafael Devers interview. Like, you're the franchise player. You're signed to the long-term franchise deal, right? They brought in a guy that has opt-outs after the first and second year. Like, I get having a little bit of pushback.
Mhm.
Now, I would like you to be a better teammate maybe, right? But I can understand that. Plus, there may be some communication issues because he's not outright, answering. He has a translator that's
Yeah.
kind of helping.
Yes.
So, okay, what Tristan Casas said was crazy. Like, you're 25 years old. You have
I
no
think he's
right to have a
24, isn't he? He's 24.
sure. He's the hell of a lot younger than us. And, like, I get you want to back your boy, but where's your media training?
Well,
Right?
yeah, yeah, and then there's also people who point out with kind of good reason, like, "Oh, yeah, well, if Devers goes to first,
Yeah,
he's out of a
yeah,
job,"
he's out of a
and
job.
then, so he's got a reason to say that, which is still another crazy thing to do, like, you're pitting it's a very selfish thing to do, and then the worst part was I mean, they were kinda equally bad, but, like, "Hey, do you think that, the kids like Christian Campbell and Roman Anthony should be on the opening day roster?" And he's like, "No, we got grown men here." I'm like, "Do
Oh, I didn't
you?
see
You're
that.
like 2 years older than Campbell."
Uh, did you see Evan Carter's similar interview, but completely polar opposite response?
I know who Evan Carter is as a young man, and at 20 years old in the league, was more mature than Tristan Casas has ever been in his entire life.
It was an awesome, awesome statement. I'll see
Evan
if I can.
Carter's the man as a human
Yeah,
being.
he earned some brownie points in my opinion with his comments. It was just like the reporter asked him, "How do you feel about Leo Taveras possibly, taking time in center field?" And he just said, "Me and him were boys. We were hanging out all off season. We were working together. Like, yes, that's my natural position. I've always played there. I feel really comfortable there, but, like, I will do whatever the team needs me to play. Like, I'm ready to play right. I'm ready to play left. Like, I like to consider myself world versed. Like, if it's in the team's best interest for Tavares to be out there in center, I will happily take a different position." And I was like, that's how you answer a question. That is,
He's a good kid from, like, a small town in Appalachian, Tennessee, and, I like Evan Carter a lot. I pray for his spine, man, because that's just, it's so annoying. Some of my favorite players have rough backs, and Back injuries are no joke. We really sidetracked these
We did.
shortstop rankings.
So number 4, Welvin Francisca coming in at number 24 overall, Scout the Stat Line player for minor leaguers. His peak projections, 122 WRC plus, 281 BA. Nice. 348 on base percentage with a 457 slug, 20 home runs, 14 stolen bases. Doc, pretty nice projected numbers for Francisca and a good organization with a lot of talent. What are your thoughts?
He's great for a kid who's 5'8", 148 pounds. I
Got a lot
hate
of power in that
I
150
hate it.
body, huh?
Listen, it's 2025. Someone update something. Fangraphs. I know you guys are cutting edge. We have Jordan Rosenblum, who's running Scout the Stat Lines algorithm on Fangraphs now. We got guys on the inside. We
Listen,
got it.
I'll go
We
to
got
Arizona, you go to Florida. We'll bring a
yeah,
scale
yeah,
and we'll bring
yeah,
a tape measure. Problem
yeah.
solved.
Yeah, and how about we got this age where we have all these advanced models that will tell us anything about the future. Tell me about right the frig now about if this guy's anywhere close to 148 pounds. Well, let's take a look at his numbers. I don't think he's 148 pounds because he's ripping 6 home runs at the complex level in 45 games. If he is, that's impressive. It's almost like more exciting, right? if he could do that at 150 pounds, I'd be like, all right, well, what happens when he goes to the gym? So it's interesting. You look at his plate discipline is 80% contact, 84 actually in complex, 75 at low A. It doesn't, he's just so young. He's just one of those kids, these DSL kids. Fangraphs gives him a pretty good speed rating. I'm seeing his stolen bases here are showing, they're showing up. That's nice. I mean, I just don't know who this person is right now. I think what we're looking at is a guy who the hype's getting pretty high. And so, I mean, maybe if you're in a league that hasn't caught on yet, yeah, go give him an ad, see what happens. But there's just so many variables with this guy who's clearly, he's 18 years old. Which, listen, folks, Walcotts and LDVs, these are not your standard 18-year-olds. Okay, like that's very uncommon, and that's actually why I need to bump up. Another reason I have to bump up Walcott. It's like he's kind of doing freaky things, just even surviving to some extent. Because I'm talking about an 18-year-old here at low A and giving him excuses. But basically, yeah, Francisco, we don't know. We don't know what the power is going to look like. The speed looks like it'll play. It seems like he has some pretty solid contact numbers. He got challenged a little bit more at low A. I love the walk rate. He's taking a lot of walks. So yeah, I'm not as big on anyone else, just because there's just automatically less scouting data in the DSL too. So even when they come over here, it's like I don't know as much about them as I would otherwise. So hey, yeah, he could be anything. He could even be a boat.
I really like to look back on other players' profiles in the minor leagues. Those listening, if you are really interested to see what a really good first base prospect should look like, go look at Prince Fielder's numbers. I know that times are different, but it'll help you build an understanding. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. Like there are guys that clearly set themselves apart from a very early level and never stop. And I bring that up because Francisca, as well as someone else we're going to talk about today as an honorable mention, being in the Cleveland organization, like the best relation, I think, is Junior Caminero before they traded him for Tobias Myers. Caminero in 2022 was also at Carolina A-ball, 26 games, 6 home runs, batted 299, 359 on base percentage. The power showed right away. But if you scale it back to even the rookie level, that Welvin also played at 5 home runs, 324. Like they've done a really good job of developing these DSL kids. They let Caminero go because at the time, I'm sure they thought, hey, this might be just a pop-up guy. But that had to have been the concept, right? Like not really what the numbers are showing. So at least the organization is proving like, hey, we have the ability to make the best of these guys. Moving on, number 5, not one of my favorites. Again, kind of a Ross Jensen favorite here. Nothing against Ross on that one. I just don't love the contact, no power guys. It's going to be Jacob Wilson, number 5 overall Scout the Stat Line prospect at shortstop for 2024. Jacob Wilson comes in at 29 overall on the minor league player rankings, 125.5 WRC plus, 301 BA, 353 on base percentage, a 464 slug. 15 home runs, 5 stolen bases. Doc, Jacob Wilson, interesting profile.
What do you think Jacob Wilson's zone contact percentage was at AAA last year?
96%.
99.2%.
That's just,
It's 96 contact total.
that's crazy.
So, yeah, and honestly, it wasn't that far off an MLB level. He's just a hitter. He's the white Luis Arias. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Yeah, so he's not exciting, but this is a guy maybe you target, and especially mid to deep size roto leagues. And we're at batting average as a category, especially CBS style, where you're doing average and there is no OBP. All of a sudden, he's actually pretty good to have on your team because he's going to have a job. If he plays good defense, he's going to have a long MLB career. Just a really old school profile, though. This is a guy who, yeah, as you said, he's just offering basically no power, no speed, no fun. It's not the fun guy to talk about. I'm looking at his average EVs right now. His max EVs. Caleb Durbin Rex is max EV, so that lets you know. That lets you know.
We had to have a Durbin sighting.
That lets you know what's going on here. We have to slip in a Caleb Durbin reference every episode. He actually has a better average EV than Caleb Durbin, but worse max at EV. So Durbin just saves it for the clutch moments because that's just the kind of baller Durbin is compared to a dud like Jacob Wilson. No, we have to have some fun here, folks. It's like I see the utility for Jacob Wilson, but yeah, if you're looking for a guy with juice and maximum upside, he's not your guy. I don't know if he'll ever care. He seems like he's just such an elite hitter. I don't know if he'll ever care enough to try to pull balls. I don't think that's what's going to happen here, but maybe he can yank a few out in this new stadium.
Yeah, and we haven't seen the projections for what Vegas is going to look like. Vegas, the ball flies. Like it's the reality. It's not Colorado, but it's sure as heck not, Miami. And I think you said it perfectly, league context. And I've used this reference before, but Roto's the perfect place. You said that. You pair Jacob Wilson with a Kyle Schwarber on a Kyle Schwarber down average year. You pair the two profiles together. You spit out an average. You're probably pretty stoked about that, those two individual players if you just split them up, and average it out. So I do think there's value in deeper roto leagues. I think it's hard when you look at cats and points because, we know this playing a lot of that. Jacob Wilson goes out and hits 300, but has, 2 runs, no home runs, and 1 stolen base in a week. Like we're looking at the waiver wire and 15 guys that could have spit out a better performance and maybe have won us or lost us a matchup. So it's hard, but I think in Roto, that's where the value is. Would you agree?
100%, man. I mean, of course, if batting average is a category in a category league, that's one thing. But I just having played some Roto leagues, it's I'd rather if I'm going to roster him somewhere, that's where it would be.
Yeah. Number 6, Jordan Lawler comes in. A Jordan Lawler sighting after the big signing in Arizona. Question marks now is when does Jordan Lawler play? And I think, we'll get to that in a minute, but Lawler comes in still as the 32nd overall minor league player in the model. WRC plus projections have him at 111.2, BA at 255, OBP 336, a 427 slug, 19 home runs, 24 stolen bases. Doc, Jordan Lawler, obviously injury issues, him and Marcelo Meyer being taken back to back. Meyer having injury issues. I'm still higher on Lawler. The signing, I think it was Perdomo who signed. I'll double check that while you talk, but that did make things a little interesting. What are your thoughts on Lawler?
He's weird, man. He's such a friggin' weirdo, huh? That's it.
Incredible athlete. Cut it right there.
I'm sure he's a great kid, great frame, like 6'1", 190. That's like kind of like almost an ideal baseball frame, and add 10 pounds maybe. But yeah, he seems like a smart kid, but you gotta stay healthy to develop, right? And so he's not doing that. Yeah, he's not staying. At some point it goes from these are just freak accidents to okay, well maybe this is just like conditioning, maybe it's genetics, I don't know, but he's still only 22 years old, but he will be turning 23 this year. And again, as an MLB player, that is young, but as a guy who has the potential he has in terms of athleticism, so far it's obvious that it's been a disappointment. I will point out his EVs in AAA are not great. Um, Frankly, his contact rates aren't really that good either. 2023, they were better in terms of AAA. Even went from 87% contact, 78% contact, which is good, and 87 zone contact, which is good, AAA. And then 2024, he dropped down to 71 contact and 79 zone. So it's like injuries probably affecting him. I guess if you can buy low on him, do it, because I do think the talent's there. But there's always someone who loves Jordan Lawler and still thinks he's a top 20 prospect. That's my experience.
Yep.
And I'm just not there with him at this point. I'm like, there's other guys who are proving that they can stay on the field, like Chase DeLauder. It's like, I'm freaked out, bro. I'm freaked out, and I hope that both these guys prove me wrong, because I want these guys are human beings with dreams and the will. I'm sure most of them don't want to be injured and in pain especially when they're super talented, right? It's one thing we're talking about Jacob Wilson, it's this guy, and like, oh, couldn't he get some power? And he's like, no, I'm fine. I'm actually gonna go have a career over here. I don't care about your points league,
Your fantasy world.
Honestly, he could probably. I bet you Jacob Wilson maybe plays up in points leagues, maybe not. He doesn't do anything else. But regardless, as I'm trying to say here, the guys like Lawler and DeLauder were like, oh my gosh, what could they do if healthy? This is like where it gets tragic. And so we got to just hope that they can stay healthy and stay on the field and develop. And frankly, Arizona is just becoming kind of a problem, in that they're just a good team, right? And so they're signing guys, they're developing guys, they're bringing on some interesting prospects. So it's like big year for Jordan Lawler.
Yeah, and just to wrap up Lawler, thumb injury, hamstring injury in 2024. Thumb was in March, tore a ligament. Probably sapped that power would be my guess, right? We know that guys have any kind of hand injuries in general, it usually leads to a lack of power. Saw it from Adley Rutschman a little bit last year in the June injury. So maybe he comes back this year and the EVs go up, but the contact, we have to keep an eye on that, because we know how important that is becoming day by day. And then lastly, just to clarify, it was Geraldo Perdomo signing a 4-year extension. It's about $10 million AAV. So, I think if Lawler explodes, that's not enough to keep him off the team. You can pay $10 million to a bench guy or a super U guy. So interesting signing though, because I think that's an organization telling us and applying a little pressure maybe to a prospect, and trying to create some growth. Moving on, shortstop number 7 of 2024 for Scout the Stat Line, Sterling Caba, traded over to the Miami Marlins. He is currently ranked 36 overall. This is an interesting profile, Doc. Didn't have a great season after being traded. His peak projections have him at 104.4 WRC plus, 248 average, 343 on base percentage, a 386 slug, 14 home runs, 31 stolen bases. But I want to highlight this just before I toss it over to you. At A ball with the Phillies in 2024. I think that may be a mistake, but I'm going to read it off anyways. 26 games, a 179 average, a 304 on base percentage, a slug of 189, no home runs, 13 stolen bases. As of now, it doesn't look like he played in Miami. I'll double check that after I pass it off to you.
That appears to be accurate. Yeah, that is accurate. They got him in the they got him in a Jesus Luzardo deal.
Okay.
Did you know that Jesus Luzardo was traded to the Phillies?
Yes, and I want to say it happened this off season, but
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I did not know Luzardo was traded.
Yes,
which is hilarious, dude. It was like they traded him on Christmas. This was like
dirty
December
move.
22nd. Guys, I'm doing stuff. All right, I'm busy. Here's the problem. I'm actually so out on Luzardo. That is the reason.
Same. Yeah,
I'm
same.
just so out. That it is 100% why. Trust me on everything else, folks. Other than Luzardo news. Okay, so Caba, yeah, I've looked into this profile repeatedly because people will keep busting his name out. I know he was a big. I know he was a big popper. He was popping on the STS model last year, um, and that was largely due to. I mean, frankly, he's got great contact skills. I mean, let's look at what they were. Yeah, even at A ball, still 87% contact. That's elite.
That's still good,
So,
yeah.
so he'll be okay. Probably. It is very strange. The numbers you're reading are correct. 26 games. This is a perfect example of small sample size. It's weird. Yeah, 179, 304. It makes me wonder what kind of contact that is, though, right?
Yes.
It's because he's hitting the ball. He is listed at 5'9", 160. Maybe that is closer to who he is and what he is. He's 19. We'll see what kind of projectability there is on that frame. And so, I mean, what do the stolen bases look like? Pretty good, right? So he's probably a small, fast guy. This is someone who's going to have to make sure he can, say what you will about. Let's try someone else. Peyton Aylays or Caleb Durbin. Say what you will about these high contact guys. We're concerned about their power. If you can generate a high average and a high OBP in the minors, it indicates you know how to play baseball. If you're making a lot of contact and you're only busting out a 179 average, it is concerning. But again, small sample size, pretty young guy. He was 18 last year, so we're gonna go ahead and I guess if you want to give one more reason I'm concerned, what team did he just get traded to?
Miami.
The Miami Marlins. It's not great, folks. I'm just not going after him. He's not my guy. But again, with all these kids, I'm rooting for him to prove me wrong.
Yeah, and I think just the reminder before we move on, right? You talked about Durbin and Aylays. Those guys are 25 years old, and Caba's 19. If you give Caba 5 more seasons to develop the major leagues, I bet you we're just as excited,
I
right?
mean,
Like,
maybe, but at the same time, like I don't think either. I mean, no, Alias is actually weird. I basically was just trying not to say Durbin's name, but Durbin, he didn't give you 100 average season. He was always pretty solid at the average.
that's fair.
But yeah, again, so young. We'll see what happens. The speed seems really exciting. I'd love to know his metrics on the speed. Sorry to cut you off, but I guess just real quick. One thing, Fangraphs. Yeah, tell me the caught stealing here. Here we go. So yeah, we'll see what happens. He's just the data is incomplete, but the contact rates are interesting enough where I'd buy the dip. But I think that his brand name has gotten a little big at this point, to be honest, bigger than what you should be paying for him.
Yeah, in the 26 games at Clearwater for A ball, it was 13 stolen bases to 4 caught stealing.
Yeah,
So, right, like not enough data for us to be like, oh, see, like he doesn't have the speed. It's
yeah,
really in that gray area.
yeah.
Okay, moving on. Number 8. We're flying through it today, Doc. We can get you to sleep sooner than later.
I need to sleep, bro. I'm friggin' exhausted, but we're
I know.
crushing it.
We're crushing it. Number 8, Carson Williams. Number 8 shortstop for Scout the Stat Line 2024. Williams comes in at the 43rd overall prospect ranked on the model. WRC plus projection of 113.1, BA 243, on base percentage of 325, slug of 455, 26 home runs, projected 17 stolen bases, a 10% walk rate with a devastating 30% K rate. Comp is Trevor Story. Williams has got an incredible glove, really, really good power. But Doc, this kid cannot avoid the strikeout.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of people who were disappointed when they brought in Kim to play shortstop this
Mm-hmm.
year. I mean, he's hurt. He's probably not going to be.
What does that say, right? They signed a guy that's hurt for 2 years.
No, see, so what does it say? It, I don't think it's a death knell to Carson Williams, but it's funny. People are like, "Oh, they just hate this kid." I'm like, "Well, he's only 21. It's a weird 21's a weird prospect age because there's some phenoms who are just ripping it up and cracking the big. Some guys take a little longer. This is a guy who I don't rush him. I actually think it's pretty smart for the Rays to quote unquote hate Carson Williams by not promoting him after he rocked a 30% K rate
Yeah.
at Double-A, dude. Like, you're gonna kill him. You're gonna ruin his career. I'm trying to, as I'm talking, I can talk about him pretty easily offhand, but I am interested to see what exactly his splits were last year in the minor leagues. And so what I'm seeing here is he came out hot. Yeah. So he came out so hot in April. I know I was really excited. I saw
Mm-hmm.
368 batting average and 450 and 450 in OBP in April. This didn't have to be real, but I was like, this is something closer to what I want, like even if it's going to go down from there. And then he just completely, just started. The K's rose and everything kind of fell apart. He peaked up again a little bit in 9 games in September. The speed and the power are a draw here. And because of that, like folks, people will say, oh, defense doesn't matter. Or maybe you'll just inherently you'll just ignore defense when it comes to fantasy purposes. But I would advise against that because it's going to buy him time. It's going to buy him, time to develop when he is ready for the bigs, because he will get to the bigs just based, like this guy with this kind of defense will at worst be some utility guy forever. Yes. So he's going to be up there and the idea I think what the Rays are going for is like, well, let's see if we can get him to be beyond a utility guy. Let's see if we can get him just literally stay at 30% K rate in MLB, because if it's 30% at AA, likely going to be 35% or something bad, Nolan Gorman territory. We don't want him to be Nolan Gorman. I guess that's what we'll say. That's a great comp,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Fast Nolan Gorman though, which is this is the reason why
More valuable.
you want to do this right.
It's interesting. I think if you took his line and you put it on Vance Honeycutt, people would be ecstatic, right? Like power, speed, the average is at 250. Oh, 30% K rate. Like who cares? A potential platinum gold glove winner. But the difference is like we know how far Honeycutt has to come to be an actual real viable prospect. Like Williams, a prep pick. So like, we've seen a 30% K rate in the last 2 years about average. And I think you're right. Like 2025 needs to be a season for him where he really focuses on getting that down to like 22, 23%. And then I think we might have a star then. But until that drops below even 27%, like it's very risky.
He's got the profile where if he goes 220 or 230 batting average, even 300, 320, somewhere in that 300 to 310 OBP, it doesn't sound very sexy because it's not. But I mean, if it gives you 2020, like that plays in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
Like there's actually a
It
really
does.
low threshold here for him to be useful.
I mean, I
So
don't want to throw the name out, but like it's a light version of Ellie De La Cruz over the last 2 years.
Oh, I mean, that'd be really light. I mean, it's kind of like it's just like it's like a Volpe.
Yeah, that's better.
He's
That's a much better
He's
comp.
just Volpe right now.
Yeah, I like that. And
I mean, he's Volpe at best because he has not done that at MLB. So we should actually give Volpe credit for sticking to the MLB right now. But go on, sorry.
no, I think you're spot on with that. Anything else on Carson?
Seems like he's one of those guys you hear about the IQ and in the makeup, and if you're gonna have him as a top 20 prospect right now, you got to be banking on that. I heard the same thing about Spencer Jones. Both these guys just really smart kids, and so maybe these are just going to be Spencer Jones, especially maybe just be this 25-year-old guy, 24, guy who takes a little bit longer, and we kind of forget about him. Maybe the Yankees move on from him at some point, and then no one talks about him again. But with Carson Williams, I wouldn't be so shocked if the Rays found a buyer for him who thought they could do something with him. So we'll see. The future's bright for Carson Williams in terms of having a career fantasy. The jury's out. We'll see if he can give us something any higher than those numbers I said. If he can go to like a 250 batting average, 320 OBP, that's when things get really exciting.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We are working our way towards the end today. Etrady Vargas comes in at number 9. He's got the stat line top shortstops of 2024. Vargas traded to Miami, so we have another Marlin here, formerly of the Rangers. Vargas comes in at 47th overall in the model for minor league players. WRC plus of 112.3, BA at 265, on base percentage of 313, a slug of 472, 26 home runs, 18 stolen bases, 6% walk rate, 23% strikeout rate. And Doc, he's kind of played all over the diamond. One of those guys that we've had through third, short, and second. So he's fallen on our shortstop ranks. Like I said, moved to Miami. I know you don't love that, but what are your thoughts on Vargas overall?
It's funny. I'm actually not completely out. Like I figure that talent does trump organization at some point. But if you're young coming from DSL, it's like, That's like when you need the organization to really, really show you the way because you're likely very raw. And so his contact numbers have been all over the place. Um, I'm looking at complex level 2023. He was 55% contact. What's the sample size there? It says A ball in 2023, 100% contact rate. Well, that's good. We should aim for that.
He had one game, 2 at bats.
Yeah, there we go. That's hilarious.
Wait. How's his contact 100%? He played 1 game, 2 at bats, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. Wouldn't that
Maybe he
deviate?
just looked at them.
Yeah. Maybe it was a called. Yeah, good point.
So that's weird. But yeah, regardless, then he had 70% contact rate at low A, which is like acceptable if you have lots of power and speed. This is just a really weird guy. It's weird that he's popping on the model, but I guess they love that, he flashed some power again. 14 home runs. I will say that's pretty cool. 14 home runs in 97 games at his age at low A. Um, the speed. I guess that's what you gotta love. That's again the data's not fully there. 29 stolen bases, super sexy. 9 caught stealing. Like that's the territory where I'm like, okay, you're clearly you know how to steal a base. You could go either way. You could be a guy who just your technique's not that good, won't last against proper catchers and pickoffs. But it could also just be he's super young and just and he will rein it in, right? The future is weird for a guy like Vargas, and this is a situation where I would rather have him stayed with the Rangers, who I trust to develop hitters a lot more than Marlins. So, a weird guy. I feel like there's not a lot of buzz around him anymore. I was getting into him, I think, last year, actually in 2023. I was starting to get a little excited about him. Doesn't really. I don't know, man. Here. You know what? Based on my response, if you're in a 30 teamer, knock on doors, see if he's available because clearly, like, I don't think I'm the only one here who's lost a little bit of, lost a little bit of interest in Shedry Vargas.
Yeah, his luster's kind of fallen. And what I'm seeing, Doc, is I think this is a really big thing you identify as well. It's really for me the 89 strikeouts to the 21 walks. Like the power has to keep growing and the speed has to, kind of stay put for that to be a profile in the major leagues that works. Because a 321 OBP with only 21 walks, like he's really relying on the bat to carry that on base percentage. And in an organization that hasn't been known for developing hitters, like that's a part of development that's needed for him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's tough, man. It's actually worse the more you look at it. Yeah, he needs to he needs to take more walks if he's going to have that kind of contact rate.
Yeah.
He's going to be 20 soon, so
write him off. He's done.
But 20, and you're so raw still, and you're with the Marlins. This is a guy who's going to drop off fantasy radars. I'd say just keep an eye on him though, because he that kind of speed and power. It's interesting, but hit tool is the hardest thing to teach. So Shedry Vargas, I hope things work out for you, big guy. But there's him and Caba hanging out in Miami. They have to figure some things out.
Moving on, we are onto our final shortstop for 2024, and probably the biggest name on the list, maybe arguably. Coming in at number 10 for Scout the Stat Line, 1 through 10 shortstops of 2024 is Sebastian Walcott at number 10. Walcott ranks 51st overall in the player rater. His overall peak projections coming in with a 111.6 WRC plus, 258 BA, 325 on base percentage, 449 slug, 20 home runs, 17 stolen bases with a 9% walk rate and a 24% strikeout rate. Player comp, David Wright. That's a really nice name to be paired next to. Doc, Walcott is, number 1 overall for James Anderson at RotoWire. A lot of us in the industry really like him. We talked a little bit about the comparison to Vries. What are your thoughts overall on Walcott?
Bro, we've missed out on the most fun part. We haven't been doing the player comps. They're so ridiculous sometimes.
So most of them are like, okay, so Vargas was Ryan Braun. Holy crap.
Man, Leo DeVries, LDV, he's got Paul Goldschmidt. That's ridiculous.
Shane Mack for Emerson. I don't even know who Shane Mack is. Mookie Betts for Arias. Yikes. Talk about
The
expectations.
comps are for fun, folks. Don't worry about them. Jordan
Yeah,
Lawler. Did you say Bobby Bonds?
no, I didn't say Bonds, but it was probably end of 2023 when like the top 5 guys for STS. It was like Mark McGuire, uh, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle. And it was like, oh, we're in for a golden age of Major League Baseball. Mark McGuire. It was like, yes, I can't wait.
It's a fun feature. Some people take that seriously. Don't do comps. It's like, I'm going to do more comps actually,
And I'm
because you
only gonna
don't.
do comps, actually.
Yeah, I comp a lot. So yeah, it's Sebastian Walcott. This is a guy I need to bump up my ranks. He's almost a geezer. He's actually finally about to turn 19 years old. Not quite there yet. That's sarcasm, folks. For those at home. But yeah, I mean, you actually look at his double A contact rate, it actually improved substantially. And so I've been pretty hard on the kid. Rock, I don't a 30% K rate at double A threw me off, but
5 games though, right?
yeah, sorry. And like beyond that, I should say that like the year before, 31%. It wasn't like a standalone situation, but I think I did overlook. I figured he was 19 turning 20, which doesn't it sounds like it's kind of the same thing, but it's a little different, right? You're
Yep.
playing as like a real like young 18-year-old in double A. That's insane. I
Yep.
should really just basically throw it all out and just look only for the good, really, right? Um, and so yeah, we'll see what happens. His walk rate is actually better than maybe you think it is. I think it was among these other leagues that he played in, complex, IA. The K rates for it is real, and 6'4" is a fun size, but it gets on that verge of, is the strike zone going to be too big for him? Will he be able to handle it? But it's also, you can look at it on the other side of things. 6'4" is kind of that like upper echelon of like when the really like that actually could be an ideal height, in terms of like power bats getting the most out of their leverage. And so I'm excited to see what happens next year. Here's the thing. Like I've been low on Walcott, just kind of wanting to see more. Whereas we're seeing RotoWire go number 1 overall prospect. We're seeing a lot of guys. I think most people have them in their top 20. A lot of guys have them in their top 10. I guess got them way back there because I'm just terrified of DSL guys and how raw they are. But I like the Rangers. Like I'm kind of like a quasi Rangers fan. I just like certain teams. And so I'm rooting for the guy, and from what I understand, he actually could stick at shortstop. That's valuable too. So Sebastian Walcott, it's almost boring to talk. It's really weird for me to talk about him because even when like though I've been low on him, no one cares because the rest of the industry is high on him. And so there's like,
Yeah.
okay, I like you, Doc, but I'm just gonna ignore that one part. And so me hyping him up now feels almost redundant. It's like
Sure.
so I would just say that although it's cool he's doing this, he's at double A as a pretty young guy. Let's just stay tuned here. Let me take a look real quick before I pass it off to you. Yeah, again, caught stealing. Yeah, that's like again the kind of the gray area. 26-8. It's like it's not definitive. That was at high A too. So he's gonna find out this year at a bigger sample size. He only played. I keep saying he's been at a high A like his season, but 5 games. But yeah, hopefully if he starts at double A, I mean, this is going to be it really in terms of, this is actually it. This is where you're going to hear something new maybe, with Sebastian Walcott. If he crushes double A off the top, it's going to be like, oh, we actually should consider him like a universal top 10 prospect. That shouldn't be bold anymore because now
Yes.
he's a 19-year-old crushing double A. That's like, he's serious. He's a serious man. What could happen is if he has a 35% K rate, and
Mhm.
they're like, oh gosh, maybe they even have to put him back down to high A or something. Like, or maybe he just takes a while to get out of that slump or learn the level as a young man at double A in the upper minors with very different stuff he's going to be seeing. If that happens, I'm not out. Yeah, but it's like that's your buy. I think right now is the worst possible time you could ever buy Sebastian Walcott, basically.
Yes.
And so yeah,
Because he'll be unbuyable if he explodes at double A, right?
yeah,
Like,
I mean, I would consider selling him absolutely right now if I owned him.
mhm.
But yeah, if you're like, dang, if you're like me and you're like, oh, I thought he would have, like, thought he was older. I thought he was just because if you're older with those kind of K rates, it's less likely you're gonna figure it out because the hit tool is hard to teach. But age to level is important. So we'll see what happens, man. This is gonna be a massive year for the kid.
Yeah, again, kind of leaning back on the compare these guys to other guys in the past. I have Ronald Acuna's page pulled up right now, and Acuna never flashed the same kind of issues with the strikeout. But I think we have the potential for a superstar, maybe an Acuna, maybe in a Tatis profile. I think there's also the chance of a Luis Robert, where you get some power, some speed, right? Some big time swing and miss question marks. I think with Walcott, we have an absolute major leaguer based off just the immense skills he's shown. But I had issues in 2023 with that strikeout rate in the season, 31% if I remember correctly in his debut season, and it was like, okay, yeah, he had a great May and June, but you strike out that much, that young, it hurts. And like the superstars usually don't ever show that profile. They usually break down the door and are off and running. So I do. I'm actually on board with the sell him if you can. But in our 30 man, I have him in one of the leagues, and it's like I'm kind of just hoping for an explosion and selling him for a king's ransom.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, you look at his Fangraph scouting grade there. He's only got a 45 run grade.
That's interesting.
So I'm wondering if they've timed him or something. So he might, if he's not that fast, that's also interesting. They're not down on him. They're saying if you, their little TLDR was, if you want to find the next Fernando Tatis Jr., this is your bet. This is your guy. Um, and that kind of tracks. You're looking at Tatis actually has never really had good contact numbers, which is
Really?
interesting. Yeah, no, like he's had his 2019 he had sub 70 contact percentage. 2021 same deal. Even then, like his best, like he's never been above 74% contact, which is interesting, right? Because obviously he's had some amazing seasons, but that just shows you that you can make it work with low contact percentages, and you just need to have other things going on, like tremendous power, and that's something you're going to see. But it is worth noting that yeah, maybe we shouldn't expect the kind. I think there's some people who think maybe Walcott's the next Ellie De La Cruz,
Sure.
and what I would say from that scouting grade, I don't think Ellie ever got a 45 run. I think they knew better. So I'm wondering if, and maybe maybe he just has the tech. Maybe he'll get that technique going. I'm not seeing that with the amount of times he's being caught stolen at lower levels. So maybe instead of 20 stolen bases, you're looking more like maybe he does like 10 stolen bases or something like that. Hit 40 home runs, who cares? But
Yeah,
yeah.
hit 250, 40 home runs, 30 stolen bases. All is forgiven. We have one honorable mention today that we wanted to talk about because we didn't have a place for him in second or third, and in shortstop he did fell a little bit short. Angel Gano for the Cleveland Guardians. I may have pronounced it incorrectly, and we've been over this. Doc, big time production from Gano. What are your thoughts?
I remember this is actually one of these situations where I did look into him. So he's listed as 5'9", 150. Um, but I don't remember what I ended up finding, but it was something like he was closer to 6 foot, I think. He had put on a bunch of weight. I don't know, but he's really trending up, and this is someone I am buying into because we're starting to see a little bit more of I guess a sustainable track record and just really good. What's his contact rates? Let's look down here. He's got a above 80 contact so far, and 80% that is. And so we're seeing a guy who probably steals some bases. He's really efficient on the base pass. Love to see that in contrast to some guys we've been talking about today. You see 4 home runs in 66 games at high A, 6 home runs at 44 games at low A. So it's like these aren't like blowing your mind, but it's enough for me to be interested. He is going to be 21 in May, so he's not some kid anymore. But that's like if he starts at high A again, that's like actually fine for the level. Um, Yeah, he's someone who I think, again, the hype I think is getting away a little bit, but he's just. I mean, frankly, I don't know what his defensive rating is. What's his fielding? Fielding seems okay. I don't know. It kind of feels like maybe an Andres Jimenez kind of guy, but that's a guy who's really, really good at defense. Taking away that aspect of it, I'm not necessarily. I like the organization, and maybe that's why it's an easy comp. And it's literally they're both. Maybe it's because I'm tired, and they both their names start both their first names and last names start with the same letter.
Yeah, I think it's just your association at this
AG,
point.
just a couple of
Yeah.
AGs out there, but I'm not seeing the sex factor others are seeing, but I'm seeing on Fangraphs a little write up here talking about he could be a top 15 prospect next year. I mean, maybe, bro. I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, I
I like him.
mean,
I like him. I like him, but I don't see that kind of ceiling. I should be very clear.
I'm uncertain of his ceiling as well. I have had him, I think, in at least with my overall rankings, probably criminally underranked. I brought him up to you. He's just the guy this season that I've overlooked. There's usually one every year, and I do think some in the industry may be really pushing that narrative of like this is a top 50 guy. I haven't seen that yet. I'm right there with you. I think he could
I
be.
think he's actually in my top 70 or something. I certainly see it.
Okay, that's good. I mean, yeah, then you have him. I think that's probably 70 to 90 is probably where I should have him fall because again, I have Vries and Jesus Mate and some of those guys up
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
All right, dude. That's it. That wraps us for shortstop in 2024. Anything you want to say before you go to bed?
I'm your Huckleberry.
See you guys next week.